5A, and this is commission memberships. This is the one that Mike has prepared for us. So, Mike, you want to begin with the presentation?
Yeah, the question came up previously in terms of the code allowing non-residents to serve on city commissions, and didn't define the term non-resident. And looking at our just addresses of our various commissioners, we see people in 10 Mile and Glide and Winston and Green, and areas that are generally well outside of the city of Roseburg. And so we discussed that, and we discussed what is a non-resident, and tried to discuss what that boundary might be. And we agreed that, I think, really depending on the commission, that definition might shift a little bit. And so you asked me to prepare my thoughts, at least in terms of what I thought on each of the commissions. And I know Rick has a comment on one, and I know what it is, and I was going to put that in there because I knew that's what his issue was on it. But since he said it was my thoughts, I kept it to that. And I'm sure Rick will jump in, and I don't have an issue with that, but I just wanted to. I was aware of it. So let me, if I can, let me just run through each of the commissions, and what I did is I gave you just a little bit of background about what's required on that commission for each one, and I gave you the language out of the existing municipal code, and then I just suggested what it might look like based on my proposal. The first one on the airport commission, just tell you that there aren't any changes recommended, and one of the main reasons for that is it currently requires 4 city residents to be licensed pilots and another person to be appointed by Douglas County. So you have a very limited population from which to select with very specific requirements, and so it seemed really difficult to do that. That commission is made up, by the way, of 7 commissioners. So based on that, I didn't really feel like any changes were necessarily warranted to that particular commission. As we get down to the Economic Development Commission, that commission currently consists of 9 voting members, 6 of which must be city residents. Again, non-residency is undefined. And so my proposal here would change the current requirements by, first of all, by reducing the number of total members to 7. City residency would be required for 5 of those members, which leaves you obviously with 2 non-resident positions, or potential for non-residents to fill. And so my suggestion would be to place that if they don't live in the city, basically they need to own property or have a place of business in the city. The idea here being that if you're on economic development is one of those commissions that really serves well outside the city limits and probably well outside our urban growth boundary. It works hand in hand with Douglas County Industrial Development Board and other economic development agencies, and so but it is nevertheless a city commission, and so to tie it into some type of some way to show support for the city, or that there's a vested interest in the interest of the city in promoting our interests. So basically, again, the change on that one is it reduces it to 7, and then says basically if you're a non-resident, you have to own a business, have a place of business in the city, or own property in the city. On the Historic Resource Commission, this is a commission that evaluates changes to historic properties within one of the 3 historic districts, all of which are located entirely within the city of Roseburg, the downtown, the Laurelwood, and Mill Pine historic districts. Currently, city residency is not required for any of those members. There are currently 5 members that serve on that commission. My proposal here would change the current requirements by actually increasing the number of voting members to 7. City residency, or at least a place of business in the city, would be required for all members. Consideration for applicant qualifications, knowledge, or expertise is identified in fields such as archaeology, architectural history, conservation, cultural anthropology, curation, engineering, folklore, historic architecture. There's a number of things that are listed in the suggested ordinance language. By the way, the suggested ordinance language was not my own. I totally believe in cut and paste. And thankfully, the League of Oregon Cities had links to ordinances from every municipal city in the state of Oregon. So actually, I did open up every one of those and take a look, and it was easy to just kind of skim. Luckily, they're all set up the same, or pretty close to the same, and so I was able to kind of look through and see what commissions are similar in nature to ours, and see how what they required. And so a lot of these are based on what most cities do in the state of Oregon. But anyway, so this commission again would change to increase from 5 to 7 members. City residency or a place of business would be required, and a certain knowledge or expertise, or at least a consideration is required for their knowledge or expertise in certain fields. On the Parks Commission, this commission currently consists of 9 members. Again, just as the Economic Development Commission, this is, well, no, not unlike the Economic Development Commission, like the Public Works Commission. This is a commission that was consolidated from 2 commissions into 1, and so it went from its original 7 to 9 at that point. Out of the 9 voting members, 6 of them must be city residents. Again, non-residency is not defined. So this, my proposal on the Parks Commission would reduce it to 7 members, 5 of which must be city residents. And as we look at the Parks Commission, Parks Commission deal with parks. They deal with those proper recreational properties within the city of Roseburg that have been built for residents of the city. There are parks outside of the city that are in the county. The county also has a Parks Commission. So many cities had their Parks Commission solely city residents. Now the Parks Commission felt that, well, because they also oversee the golf course, and the golf course has a little bit greater of a pull from outside of our community, that there ought to still be some non-residents that represented that aspect of it. The parks are, and a lot of school properties are sort of used in conjunction with one another, and so we felt that because there is a little bit of a greater pull from the golf course, that we would use the Roseburg School District boundary as the boundary upon which to draw Parks Commission members.